So what I thought we could do just to kind of get us in the flow of things, if just as when we first started speaking, really, if you guys, but between you, could give us kind of a roundup as to what the project's about, what the film's about, and kind of how you came to be involved with Crowdfunder. I think that'd be awesome.
Okay, so Light Years is the feature debut of the BAFTA winner Esther Mae Campbell, stars Beth Orton, Mohammed and Zia. It's about a little girl who's looking for her mum. Basically, it's a road movie, but taken on foot. And Rose is searching for her mum. What she'll find out today is that mum is never coming home. And what she'll also find out is that mum is going to die. And what she'll also find out is that what's going to kill mum is hereditary. But what her odyssey does is bring her family finally together, and they realize they have to love furiously. So we shot the film in 2014 with BFI Creative England, some private money, and a few other bits and bobs. And we premiered at Venice in 2015. Our UK premiere was at London Film Festival in October 2015. We played about 15 or so festivals since. Being quite a small film, we kind of wanted to have our destiny in our own hands in terms of wanting to directly distribute in a very sort of small, bespoke way, mimicking rather a music tour where we would put on a limited number of added value screenings so that rather than a distributor plow 20, 30, 50, 100,000 pounds into P&A funds, that meant that the small, modest, realistic box office that we knew was coming back would never be seen by anyone other than fat marketing men in stripy pinstripes and red braces and stuff falling through counters talking about new money. We figured that the relatively modest but very real box office and VOD and DVD revenues would be much better if they came to us and to Esther and the filmmakers up to a certain level at least, by which after we can then pay into the CAMA, the collection agreement. So taking that on board ourselves, we figured actually we were going to need a few quid to actually do this, and having done a big application for distribution support from the BFI before, kind of figured it was probably just as much work to run a crowdfunding campaign, and this is where we got involved with Create Innovate via NFM, who invited us to come along. Actually, I thought outside of that, that would be brilliant for Ian to do that course anyway, given the fact that I'm probably twice his age, and I've been around the block a few times, and I've done a direct distribution on a few things, and I've done old world distribution on a few other things. So, yeah, over to Ian to say he went on Create, Innovate, and...
Yeah, so we went on Create, Innovate with various other people working on other feature films, and through that, Crowdfunder decided they would pick 2 of those feature films to crowdfund their distribution, and luckily we were chosen to do that, and through that we've had a mentoring with Sami and various other people at Crowdfunder, and it's been extremely helpful. I think without that mentoring and that help, it would have been a lot harder, and it's helped us overfund the project, and that help has been amazing.
Yeah, and that's great. You've already sort of started touching on the question I was going to ask next, because there's I know there's been a few of you involved in the project and the process. There's obviously Sam, Ian, I know Catherine as well. Yeah. Has been involved, and I think you had someone else, Mark, who was helping out with a few things around press and PR. So as a whole, how have the team found the whole crowdfunding process?
Is a first-time thing. It's kind of hard to get your head around, and it is a full-time job. Luckily, we have had the help of Catherine, who is an intern and worked on it full time over the course of the 25 days, I think it was. And you do need to work on it full time. And I think everyone has taken something from it and learnt a lot about what crowdfunding is, how to make it successful, and especially that help we've had from Crowdfunder has gone a long way, and I think we've learnt a lot.
So what advice would you give to other filmmakers then thinking about crowdfunding from what you guys have learned with your experience?
I think the key thing actually is be aware that you're probably going to lose about 10% of what you fund.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not complaining, I'm just sort of saying it would be worth from the outset figuring out that, so our target was like 6,000, we're going to probably end up with 5,200.
I think what you're highlighting, which is really, really key, is to be aware of actually all the things that you're taking on and all the things that are going to come out. Because another thing, of course, you've got to remember is things like rewards. Sometimes there's costs associated with those, and working it back and sort of checking actually, the money that we're going to get from this, when all's said and done, what is that number, and trying to sort of figure that out, I think is really key.
Yeah. Otherwise, I don't know, I've been pretty happy with how it's gone. I mean, we were lucky in that we knew we had a summer intern coming in who could spend the time banging the drum. Because having worked with a few people who've done crowdfunders, both with Crowdfunder and the other crowdfunding things are available, they had all sort of said, oh yeah, you think it's just going to be a couple of emails, but actually it's a full-time job. And we were lucky in that we had someone who that was their only job. And Ian and I fed into that and did a lot of stuff, but Catherine basically took it on and did a lot of the hard yards, and we had a few other people on odd weeks as well. And also the other thing, we had a really good PR person who was able to come almost bi-daily with really good ideas as to how we could get the crowdfunding message out there.
Yeah, I think that's really key, and that's something that I know, what I've heard from project owners before, is having those people with different skills, with the time, with the resource to kind of put into things, because there's, trying to do it as a one-man band, trying to be, your own PR person, and also the person doing, the email marketing, and also the person, putting all the content on the page and managing your backers. It's a lot to do. There's a lot to do.
Yeah, no, it is a lot to do. And it's sort of interesting, a few people have sort of said, oh, given the amount of work it takes, blah, blah, blah. But actually, getting $6,000 in, unless you're doing corporate jobs, takes quite a lot of work anyway.
It can be a bit of an emotional roller coaster.
Yeah, I think that's part and parcel of it. It's the same, it's like a shoot, you're kind of glad when they're over. It was a little bit like a shoot in a way, a sort of very small, crude shoot.
Yeah, and in terms of kind of, obviously, your backers, all of these people who have come on and backed the project and supported it, do you feel that you've also expanded the audience or built a bit of an audience around the film through crowdfunding?
Yeah, I think we've expanded the audience to a great extent. Also, I have to say, I think Twitter rather than Facebook has been the one which has seen the most kind of action. Partly because I've seen the number of followers on Third Film's Twitter go up by about 15%, whereas the number of followers on the Facebook page has gone up by about 5% across the course of the crowdfunder. That doesn't mean to say that people weren't sharing and so on Facebook, but I think people are a bit more trigger happy on Twitter. And so consequently, the message maybe got a little bit further on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say about that, Ian? I mean, disagree if you think it's different.
Well, you are right about a lot of stuff happening on Twitter with retweets, and a lot of news articles get posted on there, and especially past reviews we've had and stuff that people can see. But I do know a lot of the pledges did arise from Facebook, and with Facebook you do get to do your adverts and stuff like that to bring in those different audiences and audiences you wouldn't normally reach, which is very helpful. And various content and stuff like events on Facebook have been quite useful. Like saying we've got a Q&A there, inviting people to that. That's been very helpful in getting people interested. But yeah, Twitter. I'd say Twitter takes a lot more work, but there were a lot of kind of specific kind of groups on Twitter as well. Like you've got women and the hashtags with women in film and stuff, which I thought reached a lot of people and had quite good feedback from stuff like that. So yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see those two sides and those two stories almost, because that's something that I've definitely found working with projects before, is that the engagement on Twitter in terms of retweets and people kind of tweeting about it and different things going on is really high on Twitter, but the actual click-throughs to the pledges tends to be quite high on Facebook. So people will sometimes see it on Twitter, oh, that's interesting, and then come back and actually make their pledge later when they're coming through on Facebook. It's really interesting.
I was going to say, one of the rewards that I really wasn't sure about was our Skype with Sam. But rather amazingly, we sold quite a lot of these to people who I talk to all the time. So, and I don't know if this should be on the record or off the record, but obviously, it's a reward which you can place quite high value on, but costs you absolutely nothing to deliver. And of course, I will offer Skypes to those people that bought them, and they've even sort of joked with me that, you know, oh, when I speak to you next time, Sam, it'll be on Skype, I've bought it. And of course, they're backing us, they're backing the film, they're backing me. They're sort of friends and colleagues, but it was a really good way of putting a high-value ticket item on something where people, if they wanted to or could afford to put their hands in their pockets, they could, but they know at this end it doesn't cost us anything. And I thought that was, I was really unsure at the time. I was like, who would want to spend that much money on just having a chat with me? Actually, it's people that talk to me all the time who wanted to spend more than 10 quid or 5 quid.
So looking back kind of on your experience and the, you know, the things that you were getting up to, you know, in the period while you were live, is there anything that you can particularly remember or highlight as something that you did to promote the project that you think, yeah, that was really good, I'm really pleased we did that, that worked really well?
Kind of a combination of lots of things. I think things that worked really well were the mail shots that we sent out on a sort of rolling basis. I think I did about 6 slightly light-hearted, tongue-in-cheek emails to my whole mailing list, and you could tell when they went out there was always a little surge after these went out, and I think Esther did it twice to her whole address book. And again, there was always a little surge after she did it.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'd say I think when I was doing sessions with Crowdfunder, We Are the Tonic, they said email is king, and it definitely is. Emailing will get you the most pledges. Facebook posts and stuff like that will bring in some, but if you can email people, that's the thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fantastic. So I guess if you could kind of summarize it, if you can, and again to put you on the spot for this, if you were to say sort of 3 tips, quick tips for someone who's looking to crowdfund their film, you know, you need to do these 3 things. Could you come up with anything?
The first thing I definitely would have done would have been a big email mail shot a week beforehand, rather than a week into it. I'd heard you actually, Sami, say to the iShorts lot Average it takes 5 asks, and the last people to put their hands in their pockets are the first people you expect. I like your mum or dad or whatever. And I actually used something like that for one of my emails. I don't know if you saw it. I kind of put, on average it takes 5 asks. So some of you have already given, are ahead of the curve. Some of you are giving now a right on curve, and some of you are giving next time behind the curve or something like that. And I put the link like about 6 times in the email. And there was a proper little surge after I sent that one. But I would have done one beforehand, I think. Another thing, that if I was doing it for a different project, I would perhaps ask the community what they wanted. My brother recently did one for flamingo rearing unit. I don't know if you can remember that one or whether that came across your path. And if I'd have been him, I'd have reached out to everyone on his mailing list at the start and said, okay, this is what we're doing. What would you buy? Because at first he didn't have rewards, and then he quickly sort of changed it that they were naming flamingo chicks after people and all this kind of stuff. And things really picked up after that.
I think that's really great advice, Sam, actually. I think that's really great advice. Yeah. Is there any tips, Ian, that you would give, a top tip, one thing, make sure you do it to someone else who was running it?
One thing. Well, I've mentioned, about the emails. Definitely make sure you've got your network nailed down. Every single person you know, get them in an emailing list and make sure you fire those out through the crowdfunder. And I'd also say make sure you have good assets and stuff for Facebook and Twitter. Stuff to regularly keep posting and have people talk about, and content that people might be interested in. If you're a film, if you've got good behind the scenes stills and video clips, trailers, posters, all that kind of stuff, it's very important to make sure you keep at it through the whole process, just every day, just posting something and making sure people pledge or just even share or click anything. I'd say that is very important.
Yeah. And what kind of content were you guys using, Ian, in terms of the visuals that you were putting out?
So we had the trailer, we got the poster, we had clips with Beth from Venice Film Festival speaking. We also had Esther's photography from the film, so it was behind the scenes, but it's very beautiful photography and done professionally by Esther, so it looks brilliant, and I think that was our best asset, really. People loved that. And we also had various other behind the scenes stills, as well as GIFs that we've been posting as well. And I think that's about it. We've done a few pages from the script, and also clips, which Mark did exclusive, got an exclusive with The Guardian for a clip, and I know he's working on getting other exclusives as well, so clips are a great asset to have as well.
Yeah, that's a really great list. That's a lot of fantastic content, and I think you're absolutely right again in saying that the more you can have kind of up your sleeve and ready to roll out over the project, the better. So a couple of years down the line, could you see yourself crowdfunding again?
Yeah, with the right project for the right most definitely.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, I think it went well enough that it could be on the plate again in the future. Yeah.
Yeah, and definitely the filmmakers that I've worked with that have come around, and this is their second, third, fourth project, the feedback I get, and this is something you'll be happy to hear, is it gets easier.
Yeah, well, I think that's the same as the release. We've learned so much from doing the release that, this release for Light Years is easier than the last one or the last couple last time round. So yeah, that's the same as anything. And it doesn't necessarily get easy, you're just more prepared for what's coming up. The work is still the same, but it's like running the 100 meters doesn't get any easier, but the more you do it, the more you figure out how to do it.
Yeah, definitely. Anything else that you wanted to touch on or mention before we sort of leave it there?
From my point of view, I just wanted to sort of say thanks, because some of the help and support you've given us has been really great.
Yeah, I'd like to say that as well. Especially me and Catherine, really appreciated our midweek Skypes and all the help we've had. It's been great.
No, it's been really lovely to work with you guys, and I'll pass on your kind words to everyone else at the team as well who've been doing various bits on socials.
Great, thank you.
Awesome.